Jake Morrison stood in his small office looking at the strange message on his computer screen. The words were in perfect English, but they came from somewhere far beyond Earth. The Galactic Council wanted humans to join their survival show. Read the message again. Every year, different alien races sent their best people to compete on dangerous planets. The rules were simple. No advanced technology, no space weapons, no fancy machines. It's just basic survival skills and whatever you could make with your own hands. Jake laughed. The aliens had no idea what they were asking for. The message explained that 12 teams would go to a wild planet. Each team had 4 people. They would have 30 days to survive and complete challenges. Millions of aliens across the galaxy would watch the show. The winning team would bring great honor to their species. Jake picked up his phone and called his old friend Lisa Carter. She answered on the second ring. "Jake, what's going on?" "Remember how you always said you wanted to show aliens what humans can do?" "Yeah, why?" "Pack your survival gear. We're going to space." 3 days later, Jake's team met at the military base. Lisa Carter arrived first. She was a former Army Ranger who could survive anywhere. She knew how to hunt, how to find water, and how to build shelter from nothing. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and she carried a small backpack with basic supplies. Pete Johnson came next. He was thin and quiet, but his mind was sharp. He could build anything from simple materials. Jake had seen him make working machines from scrap metal and broken parts. Pete understood how things worked, from the smallest tool to the biggest engine. Amy Brooks was the last to arrive. She was a scientist who studied plants and chemicals. She knew which plants were safe to eat and which ones could be used as medicine. She also knew how to make useful things from natural materials. Her blonde hair was tied in a simple ponytail, and she wore practical clothes. So Lisa said, "We're really going to an alien survival show?" Jake nodded. "The council thinks we're just another primitive species. They want to see how we do against races that have been traveling space for thousands of years." Pete smiled. "They don't know about fire, do they?" "What do you mean?" Amy asked. "I read about the other species," Pete explained. "Most of them evolved past using fire. I think it's dangerous and primitive. Some of them are actually afraid of it." Jake grinned. "That's going to be their first mistake." The team spent the next week preparing. They couldn't bring high-tech equipment, but they could bring basic materials. Jake packed flint and steel for making fire. Lisa brought simple metal tools and hunting supplies. Pete collected pieces of wire, small metal parts, and basic chemicals. Amy gathered seeds, dried plants, natural materials for making medicine. The transport ship arrived on a Tuesday morning. It was huge and silver, floating silently above the military base. The door opened, and a ramp extended down to the ground. The alien who greeted them was tall and thin, with blue skin and large eyes. It spoke through a translation device. "Welcome, humans. I am Guide Nexus. Please follow me." Inside the ship, Jake's team met the other competitors. The Zephyrians looked like living crystals that sparkled in the light. They could absorb energy directly from sunlight and didn't need to eat regular food. The Neptunians were blue and moved like they were swimming even in air. They could filter nutrients from any liquid. The chitin looked like giant insects with hard shells. They could store energy in their bodies and sleep for weeks without eating. The Verdeans were plant-like creatures with green skin and leaves growing from their arms. They could sense the health of any living thing just by touching it. There were other species too. Some could change their body temperature at will. Others could see in complete darkness or hear sounds from miles away. Each species had evolved special abilities that helped them survive. The aliens looked at the humans with curiosity and amusement. Jake heard some of them talking through their translators. "Look at them. No special abilities at all. They're so soft and weak. How did they even develop space travel? This'll be entertaining to watch." Jake kept his face neutral, but inside he was smiling. Let them underestimate humans. It would make victory even sweeter. Guide Nexus led all the teams to a large room with windows showing the stars. "Tomorrow we arrive at Survival World 7. The planet has forests, mountains, rivers, and dangerous animals. You will be scattered to different locations. Your goal is to survive 30 days while completing challenges. Alien pointed to a large screen showing rules. No advanced technology. No energy weapons. No molecular devices. No quantum communicators. You may only use materials you can find or make on the planet. Okay, Crystal and Zephyrian spoke up. What about natural abilities? Natural abilities are allowed, Guide Nexus replied. Evolution has given each species different gifts. The competition will show which gifts are most valuable for survival. Jake looked at his team. Lisa was checking her simple metal knife. Pete was examining a piece of flint. Amy was studying the dried plants in her pack. They didn't look like much compared to aliens who could photosynthesize energy or filter water through their skin, but Jake knew something the aliens didn't. Humans had spent millions of years learning to survive with nothing but their brains in their hands. They had conquered Earth not through special abilities, but through tools, fire, and working together. The next morning would be interesting. The transport ship dropped the teams at different locations across the planet, just as the sun was rising. Jake felt his feet touch solid ground for the first time in days. The air was thick and humid, filled with strange sounds from the forest. Around them, everyone good? Jake asked his team. Lisa checked her pack. All here, knife, rope, basic supplies. Pete looked around at the trees and rocks. Perfect. Lots of materials to work with. Amy knelt down and examined some plants growing. Nearby, the soil is good. Plenty of plant life. Some of these look useful. Jake nodded. Let's find water first, then shelter. But Pete, I want you to start on fire as soon as we're settled. Across the galaxy, millions of alien viewers were watching the show on their screens. In the broadcast center, the host was a floating creature, made of light. Welcome viewers to another season of Primitive Survival. Today we watched 12 teams begin their 30-day challenge on World 7. Let us observe how different species approached the first day. The cameras showed the Zephyrians finding a sunny clearing where they could absorb energy from the light. The Neptunians located a stream and began filtering water through their skin. The Chiton were digging into the ground to create a safe burrow. Then the cameras focused on the humans. Interesting, the host said. The humans are gathering materials. Let us see what these newcomers will do. Jake's team had found a small stream running down from the hills. The water was clear and cold. Lisa tested it and nodded. Good water. Source, we can set up camp near here. Pete was already collecting stones and dry wood. He had found some metal fragments from an old crash site and was shaping them into tools. Amy was gathering plants and testing them by smell and touch. Pete called out, I'm ready. Pete had arranged small pieces of wood in a careful pattern. He held his flint and steel above some dry grass and leaves. With quick strikes, he created sparks that fell onto the tinder. The grass began to smoke. Pete blew gently on it. A small flame appeared. In the broadcast center, the alien host paused. What is the human doing? The flame grew larger as Pete fed it more dry material. Soon he had a proper fire burning in a circle of stones. The alien audience watching the show went silent. Fire was not unknown to them, but seeing it created and controlled like this was shocking. Many species had evolved past the need for fire. Others were afraid of it. A Zephyrian commentator spoke up. This is primitive behavior. Fire is dangerous and uncontrolled. But other aliens were fascinated. They had never seen anyone make fire from nothing but stones and metal. Jake smiled as he watched Pete build up the fire. Good work. Now let's get food. Lisa had been studying animal tracks near the stream. Something like deer came through here. This morning, I can track them. Amy added more wood to the fire. I'll start working on medicine and food plants. This fire will help me cook and dry things. Pete was already making tools from the metal fragments he had found. He hammered them against rocks to create sharp edges. Soon he had knives, spear points, and arrowheads. Lisa tried this, Pete said, handing her a newly made spear. Lisa tested the balance. Perfect. This will work well for hunting. While other? Teams were still setting up basic shelter. The humans were preparing for active survival. Lisa followed the animal tracks into the forest. She moved quietly, using skills learned in military training. The deer-like creatures were larger than earth deer, with longer legs and sharper horns. But Lisa had hunted dangerous animals before. She waited patiently until one animal separated from the group. Her spear flew straight and true. The animal fell quickly. Back at camp, Pete had used the fire to create more tools. He heated metal pieces until they glowed, then shaped them while hot. Amy was cooking plant roots in the fire and drying leaves for medicine. When Lisa returned, with the meat, the fire allowed them to cook it properly. The smell of roasting meat filled the air. The humans are consuming cooked flesh, the alien host announced with surprise. Most species find this behavior disturbing, but some alien viewers were curious. The food looked good, and the humans seemed to be getting stronger, while other teams struggled. On the second day, the humans expanded their camp. Pete built simple machines using wood and stone. He created a water wheel to grind plant seeds into flour. Lisa made bows and arrows for better hunting. Amy set up a workshop for making medicine from local plants. The alien cameras showed other teams struggling. Zephyrians were weak because thick forests blocked much of the sunlight they needed. The Neptunians were getting sick from being out of water too long. The Chiton were losing stored energy and needed food. Meanwhile, the humans were thriving. They had plenty of cooked food, clean water, effective tools, and strong shelter. Their fire kept dangerous animals away at night and provided light for. Working after dark, Jake gathered his team around the fire on the third evening. "How are supplies?" "Good," Lisa reported. "Plenty of game in the area." "My hunting tools are working well." Pete nodded. "I've mapped the nearby materials. Lots of metal, good stone, useful wood. I can make whatever we need." Amy smiled. "The plants here are amazing. I've found natural painkillers, antibiotics, and energy boosters, plus lots of good food." Jake looked at the fire crackling between them. "The other teams are struggling. We should be ready to help them when they need it." "Help them?" Lisa asked. "Intelligence gathering," Jake explained. "We help them survive. They tell us about their abilities and weaknesses. Information that could be useful later." Pete grinned. "You want to turn a survival competition into a learning experience?" "Exactly," Jake said. "By the time this is over, we'll know more about these alien species than they know about us." The fire burned bright in the alien night, visible to cameras across the galaxy. Viewers were beginning to understand that these humans were not just surviving. They were planning. 2 weeks into the competition, Jake's team had built something that looked more like a small town than a survival camp. Pete had created a system of bamboo pipes that brought fresh water from the stream directly to their cooking area. Lisa had built multiple hunting blinds around the territory, each one stocked with weapons and supplies. Amy had established a garden where she grew useful plants in neat rows. She had also built a smoking house where they preserved meat for long-term storage. The fire that had started everything now burned in several locations around their camp, each one serving a different purpose. "Status report," Jake said as his team gathered around their main fire pit. Lisa pointed to a map she had drawn on a piece of bark. "I've scouted 12 kilometers in all directions, marked water sources, game trails, and dangerous areas. Found 3 other teams struggling with basic survival." Pete showed them his latest creations. "I've built a workshop with proper tools, hammers, chisels, saws, and measuring devices. Also completed the water wheel for grinding grain and a pulley system. For moving heavy materials," Amy held up various bottles made from gourds. "Medicine supplies are excellent. I've got pain relievers, infection fighters, and energy boosters. Also mapped every edible plant within walking distance." Jake nodded with satisfaction. "The other team's not doing well," Lisa reported. "The Chiton are barely moving. They're running out of stored energy and don't know how to hunt. The Zephyrians are weak from lack of sunlight. The Neptunians have skin problems from being out of water too long." Across the galaxy, alien viewers were watching in amazement. Show's ratings had doubled since the humans arrived. Some aliens were horrified by the human methods. but others were fascinated. "These humans are changing everything," one commentator said. "They're not just surviving, they're improving their situation every day." The show's producers had noticed too. They were mostly from old civilizations that had evolved beyond what they called primitive behaviors. The human success was making them uncomfortable. "Time for the mid-season challenge," the head producer announced. "Release the hunter robots." This was a traditional part of the show. Mechanical predators would be released to test the team's defensive abilities. Each robot was programmed to be defeated by specific abilities that different species possessed. Zephyrians could create light bursts that blinded the robot's sensors. The Neptunians could create sonic waves that confused their programming. The Chiton could dig underground where the robots couldn't follow, but the robots had no programming for dealing with humans. The first robot appeared near Jake's camp at dawn. It was 4 meters tall, moved on 6 legs, and had multiple sensor arrays. It was designed to hunt and test, not to kill, but it was still dangerous. "Contact," Lisa called out. "The large mechanical approaching from the north." Jake's team moved into positions they had practiced. This wasn't their first time dealing with dangerous threats. Pete had prepared for this possibility. He had built several catapults around the camp's perimeter. Lisa had created pit traps covered with branches and leaves. Amy had prepared fire. Arrows using plant-based chemicals that burned very hot. The robot entered their territory and immediately fell into one of Lisa's traps. As it struggled to climb out, Pete's catapults launched rocks and spears at it from multiple directions. Amy's fire arrows struck its sensor arrays, melting the delicate equipment. Within minutes, the robot was disabled and helpless in the pit. "Interesting," Jake said, looking down at the mechanical hunter. "Pete, what can we salvage from this thing?" Pete climbed down into the pit with his tools. Metal components, wiring, power cells, and some interesting mechanical parts. "This is better than Christmas morning." The alien producers watched in shock as the humans stripped the robot for parts. This had never happened before. Teams were supposed to drive the robots away or hide from them, not defeat them and take them apart. "Send another robot," the head producer ordered. The second robot was larger and more heavily armored. It approached the human camp more carefully, trying to avoid the obvious traps. But Jake's team had spent 2 weeks learning to work together like a military unit. They used fire to drive the robot toward prepared positions. They used coordinated spear attacks to damage its legs. They used ropes and pulleys to trip it and bring it down. Soon, the second robot was also disabled and being taken apart for useful materials. "Send 3 robots," the head producer said, his voice tight with frustration. The third attack was the most dangerous yet. 3 robots approached from different directions, forcing the humans to split their attention. But this played to their strengths. Lisa took 1 robot using mobility tactics, leading it through a series of traps and obstacles that damaged it over time. Pete handled another using mechanical solutions, dropping heavy logs and rocks on it from carefully prepared positions. Amy dealt with the third using chemical weapons, fire arrows, and smoke that confused its sensors. Jake coordinated all 3 efforts, calling out positions and timing attacks. When the dust settled, 3 more robots lay disabled around their camp. By the end of the day, Pete had integrated robot parts into their camp's infrastructure. They now had electric lighting, powered tools, and even a basic communication system. "This is unprecedented," the alien host announced to the galaxy. "The humans have not only survived the robot challenge, they have improved their situation using robot components." Other teams had barely survived their robot encounters. Zephyrians had used up most of their stored energy creating light bursts. The Neptunians were exhausted from generating sonic waves. The Chiton had been forced to abandon their carefully prepared burrows. Meanwhile, the humans were using robot parts to build better weapons, or efficient tools, and improve defenses. "We need to help the other teams," Jake announced that evening. "They're in trouble." Lisa looked at him questioningly. "Help our competition." "Help and learn," Jake corrected. "We save them. They owe us. We study their abilities up close. Gather information about their species that could be useful to Earth." Amy smiled. "And we show the galaxy what human cooperation looks like." Pete was already planning. "We can build portable shelters, water purification systems, and basic tools. We can help them survive while learning everything about them. Jake nodded. Tomorrow, we start making allies and gathering intelligence. The fire crackled between them as they planned their next moves. Around the galaxy, alien viewers were beginning to understand that these humans thought differently than any species they had encountered before. The show's producers were angry. The humans were making their carefully planned competition look foolish. Ancient alien civilizations who had sponsored the show for centuries were demanding answers. These primitive mammals are ruining everything, the head producer complained. They're supposed to struggle and fail like newcomers should. His assistant, a floating creature made of energy, flickered nervously. The ratings are the highest in show history. The audience loves watching them. Don't care about ratings? I care about maintaining proper order. Release the environmental challenges. The new phase of the competition was designed to split teams apart and make cooperation impossible. Sudden weather changes would force teams to move constantly. Territorial. Predators would claim large areas. Scattered objectives would require teams to spread out across the planet. The producers smiled as they watched their plan unfold. Other species were struggling even more now. Zephyrians couldn't find stable sunlight sources when forced to keep moving. The Neptunians were getting sicker away from water. The Chitin were too weak to dig new burrows every few days, but the humans adapted like they always did. New plan, Jake announced to his team. We split into pairs and operate like a military patrol. Lisa and Amy will be the mobile unit. Pete and I will establish secure positions and supply points. Lisa checked her gear. How do we stay in contact? Pete pointed to smoke rising from their main camp. Signal fires. I've prepared different combinations of materials that create different colored smoke. White smoke means all clear. Right. Black smoke means danger. Red smoke means meet at rally point 1. Amy packed her medical supplies into a portable kit. What about the other teams? That's the beauty of this new challenge, Jake said. They're desperate now. They'll be grateful for any help we can offer. Jake was right. First team they encountered was 3 Chitin who were barely alive. Their insect-like bodies were designed to store energy for long periods. But they had been forced to use it all up, moving constantly. Lisa and Amy found them collapsed near a dried-up water source. The kitten were too weak to move or even speak clearly. Can help you, Amy said gently. She had learned some basic chitin language during their weeks on the planet. We have food and medicine. The lead kitten named Kresh looked at the humans with large compound eyes. Why help enemies? Because you're not our enemies, Lisa replied. You're fellow survivors. Amy mixed water with high-energy plant extracts she had prepared. She gave each chitin small amounts to drink. Lisa set up a portable shelter using materials Pete had designed. Within hours, the chitin were strong enough to move. But they were amazed by what the humans had done. Your species shares resources with competitors? Kresh asked. Our species survives by working together, Amy explained. We're stronger when we help each other. As the chitin recovered, they shared information about their abilities. Lisa learned that they could sense vibrations through the ground from great distances. Amy discovered that their shells could be used to make incredibly strong tools and armor. Meanwhile, Jake and Pete had established a supply depot in a cave system. They used robot parts to create a workshop that could produce tools, weapons, and supplies quickly. They also set up communication relays that could send smoke signals across long distances. Signal from Lisa, Pete observed, watching colored smoke rise from the valley. They've made contact with friendlies. Jake nodded. 2 is working. What about the Neptunians? Pete pointed to his map. Last seen heading toward the river system. They are probably dying of dehydration by now. They found the 3 Neptunians 2 days later. The aquatic aliens were in terrible condition. Their blue skin was cracking and bleeding from being out of water too long. They could barely move. Jake approached them carefully. Neptunians were known to be proud and territorial. We have water and medicine. Let us help. The lead Neptunian, named Flux, spoke through a translation device. Humans offer aid to superior species. We offer aid to fellow survivors, Jake replied. Simply, Pete had prepared a portable water system using bamboo pipes and purification tablets. Soon, the Neptunians were soaking in clean, cool water. Their skin began to heal, and their strength returned. "Your water purification methods are impressive," Flux admitted. "Our species assumed you were too primitive to understand advanced concepts. We understand that water is life," Pete said. "Everything else is just details." As the Neptunians recovered, they shared information about their sonic abilities and their knowledge of underwater resources. Jake filed away every detail for future reference. The pattern continued across the planet. Lisa and Amy rescued struggling teams using mobility and medical knowledge. Jake and Pete provided secure locations and technical solutions. Teams shared information about their species, capabilities, and weaknesses. The humans were turning the survival competition into an intelligence gathering operation. The alien producers watched in growing frustration as their environmental challenges failed to stop the humans. If anything, the new rules were helping them learn more about other species. "Release the apex predators," the head producer ordered. "Every dangerous animal on the planet. Let's see how they handle real threats." It's the final environmental challenge. Filled the competition area with the planet's most dangerous creatures. Giant predators that could tear through metal, pack hunters that used coordinated tactics, flying creatures with poison claws. Other teams went into panic mode. They had barely been surviving the previous challenges. Now they faced immediate death from multiple threats, but the humans were ready. Lisa's mobile unit used their knowledge of the terrain to guide friendly teams to safe areas. Amy's medical skills kept injured aliens alive. Pete's supply depots provided weapons and tools to anyone who needed them. Jake's coordination kept information flowing between all the groups. Most importantly, humans had spent weeks learning about each species' abilities. They knew which aliens could sense approaching danger, which ones could heal from injuries, and which ones had natural defenses against specific threats. "Kresh," Jake called to the chitin leader over their communication system. "We have pack hunters moving toward the Zephyrian position. Your people can sense their ground vibrations." "Already detected," Kresh replied, sending location data now. The rescued alien teams found themselves working together under human coordination. Provided light for night operations. Neptunians used sonic abilities to confuse predators. Chitin sensed approaching threats through ground vibrations. What had started as a competition between separate species had become a cooperative survival network with humans at the center. The alien audience across the galaxy watched in amazement as the supposedly primitive humans organized a defense that protected everyone. The show's producers realized they had lost control of their own program. "Sir," the assistant said quietly, "the humans have turned our survival show into a demonstration of leadership and cooperation." The head producer stared at the screens showing humans working with multiple alien species. How did primitive mammals outsmart civilizations that are millions of years old? "Maybe," the assistant suggested carefully, "being primitive isn't the same as being stupid." The final week of the competition began with an announcement that shocked every team on the planet. The show's producers had decided to release every dangerous predator in their collection at once. Hundreds of deadly creatures would hunt the remaining contestants in one massive battle for survival. "This is supposed to be our ultimate test," Jake told his team as they gathered around their communication center. "The producers want to see pure survival instinct." Lisa checked her weapons. "How many predators are we talking about?" Pete studied the data they had gathered about the planet's wildlife. "Based on what we've seen, probably 50 different species. Some hunt alone, others in packs. Most are bigger and stronger than anything on Earth." Amy looked at the medical supplies she had prepared. "The other teams won't survive this. They're already weak from the previous challenges." Jake nodded grimly. "That's exactly what the producers want. They're tired of us making their show look easy." Across the planet, the other alien teams were preparing for what they thought would be their last few days alive. The Zephyrians gathered in the brightest clearing they could find, hoping their light abilities would protect them. The Neptunians retreated to the deepest water source available. The chitin began digging emergency burrows. Each species fell back on the evolutionary advantages that had made them successful on their homeworlds. It was the natural response when facing overwhelming danger. But the humans did something different. "We're going hunting," Jake announced. The alien producers watched their screens in confusion. The humans began moving toward the predator release zones instead of away from them. This wasn't how survival was supposed to work. "What are they doing?" the head producer demanded. His assistant checked the data feeds. "They're advancing toward the most dangerous areas on purpose." Lisa and Amy moved through the forest like ghosts. Their weeks on the planet had taught them every animal, path, every safe route, and every dangerous area. They knew where predators liked to hunt and where they felt vulnerable. They set up the first trap near a water source where large predators came to drink. Amy had prepared fire arrows using chemicals that burned underwater. Lisa positioned herself. With a spear launcher Pete had built from robot parts, the first creature to arrive was something. Like a giant bear with armor plating and claws that could cut through metal. It was designed to be nearly impossible to kill. Lisa waited until it was drinking, then fired her spear into its exposed neck joint. As it roared and thrashed, Amy's fire arrow struck its eyes. The creature stumbled backward into a hidden pit, filled with sharpened stakes, one down. Meanwhile, Jake and Pete had positioned themselves near a pack hunting ground. They knew that the wolf-like predators would try to surround and overwhelm their prey using group tactics. But humans had been dealing with pack hunters for millions of years. Pete had built several automated crossbows triggered by tripwires. Jake carried a flamethrower made from robot parts and plant-based fuel. When the pack arrived, they found themselves facing weapons and tactics they had never encountered. The crossbows thinned their numbers before they could organize. Jake's flamethrower broke up their formation and sent them running. The few survivors fled in panic. No longer interested in hunting, 2 packs eliminated. The pattern continued across the competition area. Instead of hiding from the predators, the humans hunted them systematically. They used fire to control movement, traps to disable large creatures, and coordinated attacks to overwhelm pack hunters. But the most shocking moment came when Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Send the signal," he ordered Pete. "All teams, rally point Alpha." Pete created a massive smoke signal visible across the entire region. It wasn't one of their usual codes. This was a new message. "Everyone, come here now." The surviving alien teams saw the signal and faced a choice. They could continue hiding and probably die alone. Or they could trust the humans who had been helping them all along. One by one, they began moving toward the human position. Kresh arrived first with his surviving chitin. Humans call for gathering. "Why?" "Because we're stronger together," Jake replied. "Help us fight and everyone lives." Flux and his Neptunians arrived next, followed by the remaining Zephyrians and teams from other species. Soon Jake had representatives from 8 different alien races gathered around his command post. "Here's the plan," Jake announced. "We don't hide from the predators. We eliminate them." The aliens stared at him in shock. This went against every survival instinct they possessed. "Working together, we can create a defense network that covers the entire competition area," Jake explained. Chitin sense ground vibrations to detect approaching threats. Neptunians use sonic attacks to confuse pack hunters. Zephyrians provide light for night operations. Everyone contributes their strengths. Amy stepped forward. "We've prepared weapons and medicine for everyone. Pete has built communication devices so we can coordinate across long distances." Lisa spread out a map showing predator territories and movement patterns. "We hit them systematically. Take out the big hunters first, then the pack animals, then the ambush predators." What followed was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. 8 different alien species working under human leadership launched a coordinated campaign against every dangerous predator on the planet. Zephyrian light beams blinded flying hunters while human arrows brought them down. Neptunian sonic attacks confused ground predators while human fire weapons finished them off. Chitin early warning systems prevented ambushes while human traps eliminated threats before they could attack. The alien audience across the galaxy watched in stunned amazement as the survival competition became a demonstration of multi-species cooperation. The Predator release that was supposed to eliminate most contestants instead became a training exercise in coordinated warfare. By the end of the week, the competition area was safer than it had been before the Predators were released. Every dangerous creature had been either eliminated or driven away by the combined alien force. The show's producers sat in shocked silence as transport ships arrived to collect the contestants. This wasn't how their program was supposed to end. "The humans have won," the head producer said quietly. "All of them," his assistant asked. "Or just the human team?" "All of them," the producer replied. "They've turned our competition into an alliance. They didn't just survive our challenges, they made our challenges irrelevant." As the contestants boarded the transport ships, the alien teams gathered around Jake and his crew. They had started the competition as rivals from different species. They were ending it as allies. "How did you know this would work?" Flux asked. Jake smiled as he looked at the mixed group of aliens who had learned to work together. "We learned something important. The strongest predator isn't the one with the biggest teeth or the toughest armor. It's the one that can adapt, cooperate, and turn every challenge into an opportunity." Kresh clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "Your species has much to teach the galaxy about survival, and your species have much to teach us," Jake replied. "That's what makes us stronger together." As the ships lifted off from the planet, the alien audience across the galaxy was asking the same question. If humans could do this much with nothing but primitive tools and cooperation, could they accomplish with proper resources and allies? The survival show had ended, but something much more important had begun.